This week, it's week 3. Chris is catching summer vibes.
It's a lovely, refreshing drink, especially when it's a little bit warmer.
Dan is feeling underdressed.
And I don't have a top hat, but I do have a glass.
And Matt exposes our research strategies.
It's on Wikipedia, therefore it's true.
But stay safe, guys, and make sure you carry a Johnnie.
Hello there.
Welcome to an evening of whiskey drinking and whiskey talking with me, Chris.
Me, Matt. And me, Dan. We as brothers try and catch up together once a week on an evening whilst drinking our favourite beverage, bourbon.
No, Scotch.
Alright lads, whatever your choice may be, on this show we recount our stories, knowledge and adventures in pursuit of that precious water of life.
So, pour yourself a dram.
Put your feet up.
And join us for the podcast.
Okay then guys, what are we drinking this evening?
Shall I kick us off since this is my app?
Yeah,
It's all
go on
you,
then.
mate. All you.
So I've got a little bit of controversial today because I'm drinking Johnnie and lemonade. I've got Johnnie Walker Black Label and mixed with some lemonade. I didn't have any garnishes, but I do have this delightful Top Hat cocktail mixer purchased from Prince's Street in Edinburgh. My little experience there. I've got some other Johnnie Walkers here that I can drink, but yeah, I'm starting off and I'm going bold. I'm sticking to my guns on this one. You can mix whiskey. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's a lovely, refreshing drink, especially when it's a little bit warmer. If you're drinking Scotch on its own, you get very dry mouth. It's not what you want to be drinking in a pub garden, but mix it with some lemonade or some ginger ale or something like that. Gorgeous.
So what's in the lemonade? Black.
Yeah, I've got Johnnie Walker Black Label in there. You could go with a bit of red. I like a little bit of smokiness to come through, so I quite like the Black Label.
Go on, Matt. Bring it back. Bring it back with some credibility.
Well, I've gone pretty much the other end of the Johnnie Walker scale, although I could have gone further, but I'll save that for another time. We're going with Johnnie Walker 18 year, formerly known as Platinum Label, which I have had a little sample before. And is, yeah, very, very nice. Not what I normally associate Johnnie Walker with, just because it's that bit more complex and fancy.
Yeah, complex, fancy, but very, very smooth. Very easy going still.
Yeah, still very accessible and enjoyable in that sense, but definitely not your typical kind of supermarket Johnnie Walker blend.
And then Dan, bring it home.
I have gone with the budget line. I've even grabbed myself a Glencairn.
It's an interesting way to go with that one, but
It's very interesting, but
I think when the Glencairn costs more than the Red Label.
yeah.
We are doing this show on a budget though, so I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a favour there.
I have to be honest, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Although I'm holding it in Glencairn, I have no intention of drinking it any more than just a sip to taste it, because I've already been out and got my ginger ale, and I don't have a top hat, but I do have a glass.
Love it, absolutely love it.
Because the problem with Red Label is it's it costs about the same as weekly pocket money, and it's probably as old as somebody that deserves pocket money as well.
Yeah, I don't think it's a mix of particularly high age stage.
No. Where we had Black Label last week, and we had Palila, Cardu, blah, 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 blended to perfection in a almost drinkable blend. Red Label is the same stuff, but probably about 5 years younger.
But it's like you said, it's the budget end of the scale. It's made for blending. It's supposed to be very palatable, and you're supposed to know about it. You're supposed to know that you're drinking whiskey, so it's maybe not as light or as complex, but it's whiskey. It's palatable. I've killed many a bottle, both with a mixer and without.
It's got hints of flavour in it, and then a lot of
hints of flavour,
a lot of harsh rasp at the end.
Yeah, you know you're drinking whiskey.
But
It's
I love a
important.
ginger ale and whiskey, particularly Jack Daniels, dare I say it. But any basic blend and ginger ale is good.
Yeah, definitely. Particularly again this time of year, it's nice sipping a whiskey, getting to know it, something a bit more complex. but at the same time, it's nice to have a cool, refreshing beverage that's still in your wheelhouse. It's still whiskey.
I honestly can't remember the last time I allowed whiskey to be mixed.
I would say the only reason I'm into whiskey is because I mixed it first.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I very much first got into whiskey while you guys were drinking your single malts. I was working my way through a book entitled 1001 Cocktails. I didn't get to 1001 in case anyone's concerned, but yeah, I kind of came across whiskey, gin, rum, vodka, mixing them all together, and all the other stuff. So I absolutely love my Johnnie Walker. That's why we're doing an episode on it, because of being able to mix it and drink it any way you want, and because of the brand and sort of the luxury that it represents. So yeah, I've done a bit of homework for a change. I'm not just going to be sat here not knowing anything for an entire episode like last week.
So impart your wisdom then as the self-proclaimed Johnnie Walker expert on this podcast of three people.
I wouldn't call him an expert. I'd call him a fanboy.
Yeah, fanboy is okay.
Yeah.
I've read some stuff. I've been on some tours.
Yeah.
I've got a book which I'm working my way through. I haven't read it all, so I don't know all the answers to all the questions you're going to throw at me. Chapter 1 only, please.
Start with chapter 1 then. Who is Johnnie Walker?
Well, he's John Walker for a start. He was never known as Johnny. I'm not actually sure where Johnny came into it. Somewhere in the advertising, I would imagine, later down the line. But originally, it was John Walker. He was a 14-year-old boy. They kind of glamorized the story that he takes his father's inheritance. They sell the family farm. He gets set up in a grocer's in Kilmarnock. Everyone kind of who's investigated Johnnie Walker knows that story, whether it's from the Robert Carlyle advert or whether it's from their website or something
I was going
like
to say
that.
that is the extent of my Johnnie Walker knowledge. Is the famous Robert Carlyle advert.
Shut
up. Yeah, which I did watch again.
Yeah, same. I absolutely love that. Brilliant start to that advert, and I know the advertising is something we're probably going to touch on later. So, John Walker, he's not a very showy guy, considering this is, it's a big brand. It's all about luxury. It's all about advertising, catching us. He refused to advertise, even in local papers. He was, a simple shop boy. 14 when he got started in the shop, so he was apprenticing there. And it was quite common for groceries in the time, this is 1820, that products are coming into your store and you need to do something to put a stamp on it, and also to kind of improve the quality of it, so that you can appeal to your local demographic. And one of the main ways this was done was around tea. Tea was being imported from China. It was a very kind of mythical thing. What even is tea? We don't know what to do with it. And it was being...
I was going to say, I imagine there was a lot of tampering though.
Yeah, definitely. Everybody wants to work that special kind of magic that turns, a kilo of tea into 2 kilos and double your money.
Yeah.
That still applies today to the drug trade. Anyway,
moving on swiftly.
This book contains every bit of paper they can possibly find on the subjects, from his financial accounts and lists of what's in his warehouse. And it was really his son Alexander that had sort of a bit more ambition to him. Very successful businessman as well. And he starts to push out across the rest of Scotland, down into London, trying to conquer London, but finding it very, very difficult. And it's really in Australia that the brand takes off.
Oh, right.
And this is sort of 1870, 1880. The square bottle is already in play. The slanted label is in play as well. That's all sort of circa 1867, very early doors. And it was just designed to stand out on a shelf, which it did. Again, they weren't the only ones using a square bottle. Blending was very sort of taboo, so it wasn't called blend. They would do anything they could to not put blend on the bottle. So it was sold under the name Old Highland Whisky. Another name that would come up would be toddy mix. So it wouldn't be drank on its own, it would be drank with hot water. So it would be a toddy mix, which would sometimes be combined with sugar as well. and sometimes sort of citrus peels, things like that. But yeah, the word blend, it was kind of like, we are blending, we're blending, but we don't call it blending because blending's like that thing that we don't really like. It's tampering. And really it starts to shift. Whiskey is it's a cheap load of rubbish in Scotland. There's loads of other, spirits out there that you can drink, from sort of rum to brandy to sherry to wines. And Scotch is right at the bottom of the pile, really. And it's not until, again, sort of 1870s-ish, there's a massive kind of issue with the crop of grapes in France that leads to a shortage of brandy, a shortage of sherry, rather. Sherry and brandy, in fact.
Well, yeah, sherry and brandy are both made as a byproduct of distilling wine, aren't they? So if you can't make wine, you can't make brandy, you can't make sherry.
Yeah. So this is what the gentry were drinking, was brandy, sherry. But they couldn't get hold of it. And when they could get hold of it, it was very expensive, or it might not even be brandy. It might be tampered with again.
So that's where it all started then. And by the sounds of it, it's not so much Johnnie Walker, it's more Alexander that's the pioneer, the travelling man that's pushed it out there.
Yeah, definitely. And Alexander wasn't doing a massive amount of travelling. He left that to his sons. And there were family ties in Australia as well.
Yeah. I did see somewhere that
Yeah.
Alexander actually did something quite clever in Glasgow, where he started unofficially employing ship captains in Glasgow to act as sales reps. So when they're traveling the world, as they normally are anyway, he kind of tapped into that and got them to go and push the brand out there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this is the time of the British Empire. We had ships going to every corner of the globe and massive influence everywhere. And, these ships captains would definitely get around, and there were new civilizations looking for completely different things. So yeah, the captains and the shipping, as I say, Australia is probably the first big market that really embraces John Walker as a brand, John Walker and Sons.
Well, the Australia connection is strong anyway because of that pioneering and prosperity searching Scottish feeling. They did the same thing with America. They all flooded to America, and then the next one on the list was Australia, and they colonised huge areas in Australia. Pretty much every man and his dog will have some sort of Celtic root in Australia.
And people were often sent there for their health as well, to get out of the cold weather and the smoke of London. You would go travelling for your health. It seems a little bit backwards, the amount of strain that the travelling would have done to you back then. But
especially the risk of sailing.
You're not all that likely of being cured, but you're quite likely of dying. But
and from what I've read, it's Alexander the First original version 1.0 that really did pioneer the blending, the branding, and everything that goes with it. And then it was obviously his son that then took it that next bit. But I think he'd already done.
Are you trying to say John did? We heard earlier that John did no marketing, no advertising whatsoever. And now we're hearing Alexander did all the blending.
Hang on, because John had a successful grocers and a very good blend.
Which,
actually,
to be fair,
I have got an obscure fact on John. He was teetotal.
What?
No.
Teetotal.
I've not read that anywhere.
Teetotal. Google it.
I don't care about Google it. It is not in that.
No, you're talking to Alexander in that book.
No, we're talking a long stride. That is everybody in that book. I'm calling bullshit.
It's on Wikipedia, therefore it's true.
How is it even possible? Because he was blending day in, day out. How is it possible that he never tasted the stuff he was selling? No way.
I mean,
that's mad. That's mad if that's true. You can argue with
very,
Wikipedia.
very
That's a bombshell.
It's a well-known fact that you can argue with Wikipedia. I'm shocked that that's not mentioned in the book, if that is true.
Wow. If the guy's not willing to drink his own blends.
But he was a very good blender. He focused a lot on quality and he built a successful business. Alexander the First, the original, the 1.0, he focused heavily on expanding the brand and exporting it and increasing production volumes. I think it would be
Even
Alexander
tasted it.
Alexander II more responsible for the branding, the advertising, and continuing that export market.
So if we fast forward 200 years to where that brand is now, as you just said, is the number one biggest selling brand of whiskey.
Yeah.
In terms of blended whiskey, that is. It's fifth in the world of all whiskies. Put that kind of into perspective with just some points of data for you. And they sold 19.2 million 9-litre cases, which works out around 230 million bottles, which again, that puts them in first place of blended sales. Second place, anybody want to guess who it was for blended Scotch?
Bowels? God knows.
See, my first thought would be Bell's or Famous Grouse. Famous Grouse is actually
Maybe White and Mackay.
No, second place is actually Ballantine's. They do very well in the States. But again, bit of perspective. So first place, Johnnie Walker, 230 million bottles. Second place, Ballantine's, 105 million. So Johnnie Walker's won it by more than double. Compare that to single malt in the same year, 2021. It's kind of a tied position between first and second, depending on whose data you look at. But do you want to hazard a guess at the number one single malt?
It's got to be Glenfiddich, surely.
Dan?
Macallan.
I see again, Macallan, very big name overseas in particular.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And branding and marketing, I was thinking.
It's that luxury end, isn't it?
So, Chris, you are almost right. Depending on the sales figures you look at, Glenfiddich is either first or second, and Glenlivet is the tied position, somewhere around.
Makes sense.
Right. And Glenlivet, the reason Glenlivet is there is history. It's a history lesson again, isn't it? It was a king's recommend. So as you were talking about social influences, I think it's fair to say they have existed for decades because you get that royal stamp, don't you? And Glenlivet was one of those originals for a king.
But yeah, for those two are looking somewhere in the region of 17 or 18 million bottles in a year.
Yeah, I forget the king's name because we're not a history channel, but you know.
George, where were we?
But yeah. Massive brand success, massive global success.
Yeah, so huge global success, 230 million bottles in a year, compared to single malt Scotch only doing 17, 18 million. Single malt is still somehow just 10% of the whiskey industry, which baffles me because I've got all of this and probably only 3 or 4 bottles of blend.
Yeah, but you're an enthusiast, Matt. What you've got to remember is piss water like this over here is designed to satisfy all ends of the market.
Show some respect to the number one selling blended Scotch in the world.
You can't respect the red label. You really can't.
Johnnie Walker Red Label is just as attractive to poverty-stricken people as it is to somebody that is all about the enthusiasm for Scotch.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's not one in my collection, and I can't justify the money buying it when I'd sooner buy other things. But I will always show it a little bit of respect and go, well, that many people buying it can't be wrong.
Yeah. The other thing to mention on that is, as you say, you haven't got one, probably because of price. It's 20 quid a bottle, which is entry level whiskey.
Yeah.
But if we go into Johnnie Walker's history, the first distillery they bought, do you know who it was?
Cardew.
Cardew, exactly right.
We've done homework.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. 1893, if you could get that. A pretty respectable whiskey maker
that's actually something that Alexander, you can really, not take your hat off to him for, as he started investing in the sort of bulk element to it.
Yeah, the source of his product.
Yeah, so he was securing these deals with distilleries, buying distilleries. He set up a warehouse, a massive blending plant. Instead of doing it in the back of a shop, it was being done in a factory from sort of 1881 onwards.
Yeah, but I mean, Cardew, pretty respectable whiskey maker. I'm sure I've tried at least one of theirs. Not had a problem with single malt stuff. But you go into Tesco at the minute, on these rollback club card prices, 24 quid
Yeah.
for a single malt Cardew.
Yep.
So if you're into whiskey, why are you buying a blended red label?
Well, yeah.
Equally, your supermarket offers, if you check before you go out to buy from a supermarket, you'll probably find Black Label for about 23 on offer.
Yeah.
It'll be
they're almost the
33
same
retail.
price.
But yeah, you can pick the. I mean, is that litre red label though?
No, a litre's probably 25. So
yeah, there you go. I will always. I'd wait for the offer. I mean, we've got Costco cards. Johnnie Walker's about £19.80 something. For black label in there. I'm always going to do that over going and picking up a red label.
It does baffle me how Black Label is almost the same as Red Label.
Yeah.
But again, we've been in that low £20 price bracket. You jump on Amazon and you can get a set of 5 miniatures for £22 delivered that will give you the gold, the double black, the red, and the 18 year.
Yeah.
Which certainly, if you're just getting into whiskey and you want to try some new things, don't bother buying a full bottle of Red Label. Get yourself the set of 5 and kind of try out that.
So yeah, we covered off basically the origin. If we come to modern day, what is the current lineup?
Yeah. So I mean, are you still gathering?
Oh, whilst you carry on, I've upgraded, Chris. I've gone for a cloudy bitter lemon.
Ooh.
Co-op's finest again.
Co-op's finest cloudy lemon. Again, that's going to be absolutely delicious in a whiskey cocktail. Why not? So not going to be all encompassing here because there's a lot of different directions you can go, but sort of the core range. We've talked a lot about red, so budget end of the spectrum, currently retailing for
20 quid ish.
About 20-ish. Made for mixing, basically. It's not going to be the nicest whiskey you ever drink, but it's all right. It's whiskey. What can you say? Next on to the black label. So everything in this black label is 12 years. It's got an age statement to it. So 12 years or older. There's some lovely, lovely stuff going into this blend. It's a really enjoyable blend if you're going to drink it neat, if you're going to have it with ice, and you can mix with it as well. And it's got a little bit of smokiness to add character to whatever you're drinking it with. From there, you've got the black label's kind of mad younger brother, which would be the double black, which retailing for
£35.
35. So pretty similar to the black label as well.
I had a bottle of that many years ago, and I'm sure I paid closer to 40. These prices are today on Whisky Exchange, and they're not on any offer or anything. That seems to be their standard prices. But I think 35 are right for the double black.
I think double black's a gimmick, to be honest.
Yeah,
over a black.
35 makes more sense than 40. Yeah, I think it's just kind of a little bit more smoke, a little bit more madness to it. But yeah, I don't think it's that different or that much better to warrant back when we were paying, like you say, about 40 for it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's a nice blend. It's if you like a bit more smoke in your whiskey, I'm definitely a fan. Yeah. From there, you sort of go to the green label, currently retailing for
£43.
About £43. That is a bargain. Where's that? Whisky
Exchange.
Right, hang on. I'm going to have to go on there a second. I need to order myself a bottle of that.
Just read out your credit card details.
So
Yeah.
Green Label, then, couple of things of note with this one. Green Label was around a long time ago. It was a much loved whiskey. It is a 15-year-old and it is a malt blend. So everything in there is malt. There's no sort of grain whiskies going into that one, which makes it a little bit unique. It's the only thing in the Johnnie Walker line that is all malt whiskies going into it. 15-year age statement. And then I suppose, like most whiskey retailers, they ran out of the key whiskies they needed to keep producing it. So it went away for quite a while. It's come back now. I was never lucky enough to have any of the old stuff, but I've had the new stuff and absolutely love it. A lot more peated notes going on with it, but still very delicate. Really nice whiskey. I've actually got it's an Island Green, which is sort of a travel edition. I don't know if you can see that, appreciate that. But this is kind of if the double black is the Black Label's mad younger brother, then this is kind of the mad younger brother of the Green Label, the Island Green. So really, really peated on this one.
Yeah.
I think that's what I was drinking last week, actually, on the peated chat.
Just a minor correction there. The Green Label wasn't at Whisky Exchange, but it is on Amazon, £43.
Sold.
Yeah.
I need to get me some of that.
Yeah. I've never had green.
Yeah, moving on from there then to the Gold Label. And again, there's a little bit of history with the gold, because the Gold Label used to be an 18-year age statement to it when it was first out. And again, they sort of ran out of the right stock of things. So they ended up separating into the Gold Label and then the Platinum Label, which was an 18, but it wasn't really the same characteristics as the Gold. And now we've done away with Platinum. We've got an 18 and we've got a Gold. Very, very vanilla notes, really creamy, really smooth, quite delicate again. Retailing on those, Gold and the 18.
Gold 45 to 50 in supermarkets at the minute.
Yeah, and then the 18 is at 74.
Yeah.
So quite a jump up there.
Quite a jump up. The Gold, I would say, still great for blending. With I actually had it with soda water on the Princes Street Journey of Flavour tour, which I'll probably talk a little bit about later. But yeah, really enjoyable. I mean, I got to have everything in their range while I was up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely gorgeous whiskey, the Gold. And then from there, I suppose, sticking with the core, from the Gold, the 18, and then you're in Blue Label territory, which is, the luxurious end of the scale. The first time I had it, I was convinced I was just drinking something that was watered down, because it is so delicate. It is so light feeling.
Didn't you and I first try that in Yorkshire? And we both kind of went, has the barman tampered with it? Because it just felt so thin.
I was convinced that there must have been some tampering going on. My palate wasn't all that back then.
No.
I've had it again since in Edinburgh, and it was absolutely gorgeous. There's a lot of spice to it. There's a lot of complexity to it, but it's really delicate and it feels like you're drinking spring water.
All right.
It's honestly, it's a bizarre blend. It's claims that there's all kinds of rare and wonderful whiskies going into it. There's so many different additions, and it's very much the upmarket, the upscale end of the spectrum. This is the thing that you order in a classy sort of cigar bar, or black tie optional.
Well, isn't it the one that Jude Law drinks on the back of a yacht in one of their adverts?
Exactly. You need to be with Jude Law on a yacht to be really getting the full experience from this whiskey. But yeah, that's kind of the core range. They love to do a limited edition, and we know that limited editions kind of just sell, regardless of how good they are.
Talking Blue Label, just on a quick Google, they've got the London edition, the such and such edition, the limited.
The Year of the Ox edition.
Yeah, some of them have got gift tins, some of them have got glasses. most of their core range, you can get personalised etched bottles. They definitely like to kind of milk every single product and get a lot. And obviously, the standout blue label for me is the King George 5th edition, which retails at £550.
Yeah. And a basic blue is 175 quid upwards, isn't it?
Yeah, 165, 170, somewhere around there. Yeah.
And they do absolutely love it. I mean, we know that whiskey as well it's very much a tourist trap, and they really do capitalize on that, as you would expect from a global success of a brand. Sorry.
Yeah.
One of the things they do at the Princes Street Tour is they do their own bottling. They have these kind of seasonal bottlings of summer, spring, autumn, winter, just a seasonal blend, something a little bit different, which this one I think was around about 50 or 60 paid for this. It's bottled at 48%. So it's 16-year matured whiskies in this. And yeah, really, really like it. Got a picture of me pouring it. Yeah, what can I say? It's I love a bit of a touristy trap to fall into.
It is nice to do, though, isn't it? It's part of the experience. If you know you're not going to be doing that experience, time and time again,
you're never going to do that again. It's your one opportunity to kind of, I might go back to that visitor centre. It'd be nice to take you guys and do one of the different tours. The one I was on was the Journey of Flavour tour, which is a little bit of history, a little bit of tasting, but very much tailored around people that don't necessarily drink whiskey. It's all about the blend and cocktails and.
Wow, they wouldn't be Johnnie Walker fans if they drank whiskey, would they?
Oi, oi.
Oi, oi.
But I think that's a big kind of corporate push at the minute, because we're on, the third boom in the Scotch whiskey industry now, and things are jumping up massively. I think some of those big companies that own people like Johnnie Walker, I think they're all looking to push things as much as they can, capitalise on that new growth.
Yeah.
And
yeah, definitely.
You would imagine, though, that current boom in Scotch whiskey, it's got to be close to an end. It's been almost a decade of consistent rising.
Well, it has, to be fair, it did take a real bad hit in 2020 from the pandemic.
Yeah, everything did, though. That's a bit of a financial write-off, isn't it?
Not everything, but yeah.
Well, if you're selling PPE, then brilliant.
Yeah. Perspex, the price quadrupled overnight again and again for weeks. But yeah, you would have thought, with so many people being trapped at home, on furlough, working from home, we know that drinking in general went up.
Oh, absolutely. It's a British culture, isn't it? It's a proper staple.
Scotch is about luxury sometimes. It's about drinking it in a bar, in a suit.
It's a similar market to watches and fast cars, isn't it? And they both nosedived during the pandemic, people trying to offload and free up cash.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I say, the whiskey industry is now at 6.2 billion in exports coming out of Scotland a year. And it actually makes up of 25% of the entire UK food and drink export.
Yeah.
So it just shows you how little we produce as a collection of countries, because Scotland are literally pulling in all the cash on whiskey.
Yeah. And do you know who the biggest importer of Scotch whiskey is? What country?
I want to say like China, Hong Kong,
I was going to say, if we say USA, it's going to be a buzzword, isn't it? So it's going to be China.
That's the moment on QI where they go, meh.
Yeah.
France.
Ooh.
France, who are famed for incredible drinks, brandy, sherry, wine, champagne, cognac. They don't drink any of that stuff themselves. They make it.
I think, as Chris already explained, they did for a long time until they had a certain problem. And I think that's what they call the first whiskey boom, isn't it? If we're talking about three whiskey booms, the first was all about that crop.
I'm just looking for a quote at the minute, but I might give up on it. But I literally read an extract from Alexander Walker's letter talking about how difficult it would be to crack France.
Well, they did it.
And
It turns out some flies did it.
yeah, I think I'm going to give up on finding that. But yeah, literally just been reading that. How funny! I'm going to switch to my my summer edition, or my heat wave edition, because I visited Edinburgh when much of the UK, much of England anyway, was at 40-degree heat. I had the good sense to go north. My Johnnie Walker etched branded
Oh, that's cute.
Glencairn as well. I'm a sucker for a Johnnie Walker branded anything.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
If we're talking being a sucker for Johnnie Walker branding, then should we just go through some of the marketing stuff? Because dare I say it, that is some of the main influence and some of the main success is the marketing.
Yeah, it has
like
to
we
be.
kind of already mentioned, in terms of person to person and getting that message across one ship at a time. But for me, my introduction to Johnnie Walker has always been Formula One. That's where I recognise it from. They were a huge title sponsorship with McLaren for a number of years. I think they then transferred that over to, was it Force India? Actually, it might not have been Force India. It might have been Racing Point, the same team, but the year later.
Careful what you say. We don't want to have to issue a retraction again.
More retractions. They were also the title sponsor of Spa, Francorchamps Grand Prix for a couple of years. So their branding has always been prominent everywhere, even before I knew they were whiskey. And then I flicked through the old Google to find some of the other things they've been and done. And well, they're into everything, aren't they? Game of Thrones limited editions.
I actually had one of the Game of Thrones ones was. So you guys haven't watched Game of Thrones, have you?
No, not at all.
I'm off to do a studio tour next week. But yeah, I got one of their editions. So there are people called there are characters, the White Walkers. They're essentially zombies. They're dead that walk through the snow and kill you. So White Walker, Johnnie Walker, it's a match made in heaven. So they produced a bottle that you could put in your freezer, and when it was cold enough, it would reveal writing that was invisible at first, and then you drank it cold. Yeah, pretty nice stuff. But yeah, it's all about the marketing, really. It's all about the brand. And they had two more. There was one, Songs of Ice, Songs of Fire, or something like that. But yeah,
I have no idea what you just said. Something about Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones is the TV name for it, but the book was originally called A Song of Ice and Fire because it's all about dragons versus the Night King, who is Lord of Ice, basically. I don't know. Just move on because we're just going to get we're going to start getting comments from like die-hard Game of Thrones fans, which I'm up there.
You'll be all right. It's us that'll get slated.
I'll get slated because I'm still saying things. I'm trying to explain it to people that don't know anything, and then somebody who knows everything is going to be like, "Well, I think you find it's not actually a Lord of Ice. He's being created by the first men."
Well, if you want to take the pressure off yourself, then I'll just say Game of Thrones is basically budget Lord of the Rings and can go fuck itself.
Budget Lord of the Rings. I mean, it was very, very expensive, actually.
Well, have you seen how much they've spent on the Lord of the Rings series that's failed?
That did what? Sorry, the series was a huge global success, was it?
According to the Amazon reviews written by Amazon, after they deleted the 10,000 genuine reviews, yes.
Jeff Bezos loves it.
Loves it so much, created 10,000 profiles to tell people how much he loves it.
And he still won't pay his warehouse operatives properly. Anyway, moving on.
Okay, movie references we do know then. Do we know Blade Runner?
Yes.
Not really, no.
So Harrison Ford was drinking that in the 80s. He was then drinking it again in the remake.
So they brought out a special bottle, a futuristic looking bottle in because it appeared in the original Blade Runner movie and it was brought back.
And then
great stuff.
Most recently that I can find movie wise, that I'll have actually seen is in James Bond No Time to Die. and it's a proper hidden Easter egg. You literally see a silhouette of a square bottle in the back of a scene.
I see a silhouette of a square bottle.
Which is funny because Macallan is always kind of named as the James Bond drink. Even in the books, I think it's always Macallan.
Macallan. A particular favourite of yours, I understand. I win.
But Johnny Walker managed to get a bottle in the film, so fair play to him. Whilst we're on tangents, can I also chip in that we haven't done a pronunciation this week?
I
did have an idea for one.
That a great way to start a tangent is off the back of another tangent that's gone nowhere.
I think when you're already lost, don't you? You may as well keep going.
Well, I mean, Kaolila is an interesting one.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
Mm.
Perhaps a bit of Kaolila would be a challenge for Bonnie, because I'm pretty sure she can say Johnnie Walker.
Johnnie Walker.
What about Kaolila?
Kaolila.
Yeah, probably quite easily. Kaolila is quite a good one. Does anybody know what Kaolila means?
I'm guessing the Ela is something island related.
Ela is Isla. Kul is a narrow in the same way as cul-de-sac, narrow cul-de-sac. Kul being the small, narrow bit of water between Isla and the mainland. Yeah,
so it translates literally to Isla Sound, or Sound of Isla, which is that narrow strip of water between Isla and Jura.
Yeah.
Where obviously their distillery sits, which I think is just lazy naming. Like they built a distillery next to a bit of water that had a name, and they went, "We'll just use that. We won't come up with our own name." The guys 10 minutes down the road, they'll have to come up with their own name, despite being next to the same bit of water.
Today on Guys Google some shit. Where's Kilmarnock?
The people that write these PR messages, do they actually live in Scotland?
Of course they don't.
Because the place is full of water. If it ain't on the ground, it's falling from the sky.
We're on an island.
This just in from the Scottish tourist industry. Water. The place is full of it. I have got the iPad with me so I can refer to notes for a change as well. So
I've got 2 iPads and a MacBook, so I can refer to even more notes.
Loving some of the photos that keep popping up on that screen.
And action.
You were drinking something. What was it?
Water.
Of course it was. I believe you. Anyway, Chris.
It does tie in.
All right, Diageo boy.
Join us next week for my retractions.
I'm quite chuffed to say that I've dropped that bombshell on you, and neither of you
I had
found that on Google anywhere.
I did not see that come in. I did not see that come in. I mean, I know you've settled on a thumbnail, which I admit now, hands up, was my idea. Always use a Johnnie.
You started that.
But that was a joke. That was an inappropriate joke.
We ain't using that, surely.
Probably just the one after you edit it down so that it makes sense.
Good luck.